What if I told you that the world's first murder wasn't about money, power, or revenge, but about something far more personal? Something that still drives conflict between siblings, coworkers, and friends today? Welcome to Christian Curiosity, where we explore the profound stories that shaped our world. I'm your host, and today we're uncovering the shocking truth behind humanity's first act of violence. If you're curious about these timeless stories, hit that subscribe button and let's dive in together. The answer lies in a simple offering that went terribly wrong. But there's so much more to this story than you might think. Picture this. The world is young, pristine, and populated by only 4 people. Adam and Eve have been expelled from Eden, and now they're learning to survive in a harsh new reality. They have 2 sons, Cain and Abel. These brothers grow up in the shadow of their parents' fall, knowing they've inherited a world forever changed by one fateful choice. Cain becomes a farmer, working the soil that God had cursed because of Adam's disobedience. Every day, he fights against thorns and thistles, coaxing crops from reluctant earth. Abel chooses a different path, becoming a shepherd, tending flocks under open skies. 2 brothers, 2 very different lives. But here's where it gets interesting. Both brothers know they need to honor God. They've learned from their parents about worship, about giving back to their Creator. So they each bring an offering. Abel brings the best of his flock, the firstborn lambs, fat and healthy. The text in Genesis 4:4 tells us he brought the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. This wasn't just any sacrifice. This was Abel giving his absolute best, the cream of the crop. Cain brings produce from his harvest, fruits and vegetables from his fields. But here rests the crucial detail that changes everything. The Bible doesn't say Cain brought his best. It simply says he brought an offering of the fruit of the ground, as recorded in Genesis 4:3. Can you see the difference already forming? God accepts Abel's offering but rejects Cain's. Imagine Cain's shock, his confusion, his growing anger. Why would God favor his younger brother? What made Abel's gift more acceptable? Some scholars suggest it was about the quality of the offering. Abel gave his finest, while Cain gave merely adequate. Others point to the heart behind the gift. The writer of Hebrews later explains that by faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, as stated in Hebrews 11:4. This suggests it wasn't just what was on the altar, but the attitude of the worshiper. Abel's offering was an act of sincere faith and reverence, while Cain's may have been a mere obligation, a box-ticking exercise. But here's what makes this story so relatable. Cain's reaction is painfully human. Instead of examining his own heart or asking God for guidance, he becomes angry and depressed. Genesis 4:5 tells us, Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. Have you ever felt that burning resentment when someone else succeeded where you failed? That knot in your stomach when you see a coworker get the promotion you wanted, or a friend receive praise you felt you deserved? That's Cain's spirit creeping into our hearts. God sees Cain's struggle and does something remarkable. He doesn't ignore Cain or write him off. Instead, he offers counsel. God asks Cain directly, "Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen?" Then he gives him hope. "If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted?" This is God offering Cain a second chance, a path to redemption. He's not closing the door on Cain. He's showing him the key. But then comes a chilling warning. "If thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over it." As recorded in Genesis 4:6-7, God is essentially telling Cain that sin is like a predator, crouching at his door, waiting to pounce. But Cain has the power to master it, to choose differently. This moment represents one of humanity's first great moral crossroads. Cain has a choice. He can humble himself, examine his heart, and make things right with God. Or he can let jealousy and pride consume him. Tragically, we know which path he chooses. Cain approaches his brother Abel while they're alone in the field. The Bible is stark in its description. Cain rose up against Abel his brother, and slew him, as told in Genesis 4-8. No dramatic details, no lengthy description. Just the cold, brutal fact of humanity's first murder. But why? What drove Cain to this ultimate act of violence? The answer reveals something dark about human nature. Cain couldn't bear that his brother was righteous while he was not. Abel's acceptance by God highlighted Cain's own spiritual poverty. Rather than address his own shortcomings, Cain chose to eliminate the reminder of his failure. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of temporary insanity. This was calculated evil, the fruit of jealousy allowed to grow unchecked. Immediately after the murder, God confronts Cain with a question that echoes through history. Where is Abel thy brother? God knows exactly what happened, but he's giving Cain one more opportunity to confess, to show remorse. This is another moment of grace, a final chance to turn back. Instead, Cain responds with humanity's first recorded lie and one of the most chilling statements ever uttered, I know not. Am I brother's keeper? As recorded in Genesis 4-9. The audacity is breathtaking. Cain not only lies to the face of God, but questions whether he has any responsibility for his brother's welfare. This response reveals how completely sin has corrupted his heart. It's a total abdication of love, care, and basic human decency. He's saying, that's not my problem. God's response is swift and devastating. He tells Cain that Abel's blood cries out from the ground, demanding justice. The very earth that Cain worked as a farmer will no longer yield its strength for him. He will become a fugitive and a vagabond, wandering the earth without rest. As stated in Genesis 4:11-12, his punishment is directly tied to his sin. He used the earth to hide his brother's body, and now that same earth rejects him. He severed his relationship with his brother, and now he is severed from his home and livelihood. But even in judgment, God shows mercy. When Cain fears that others will kill him for his crime, God places a mark upon him for protection. We don't know what this mark was, but its purpose was clear. It was a sign that vengeance belongs to God alone, and that even the worst sinner can receive divine protection from vigilante justice. Hear us what makes this ancient story so relevant today. It reveals the destructive power of comparison and jealousy. Cain's sin didn't begin with murder. It started with looking at his brother's success and feeling diminished by it. How often do we fall into this same trap? We scroll through social media, seeing others blessed, promoted, or recognized, and instead of celebrating with them, we allow resentment to take root. We compare our behind-the-scenes struggles with others' highlight reels. The story of Cain and Abel teaches us that our relationship with God isn't about competing with others. It's about the sincerity of our own heart, the quality of our own devotion. Abel wasn't accepted because he was better than Cain, but because he gave his best with a faithful heart. Cain's tragedy wasn't that God rejected his initial offering. His tragedy was that he rejected God's offer of redemption. When God warned him about sin crouching at his door, Cain could have chosen differently. He could have humbled himself, improved his offering, and found acceptance. Instead, he chose the path of violence, becoming the first murderer and establishing a pattern of human behavior that continues today. Every act of violence rooted in jealousy, every crime committed out of resentment, every time someone chooses to tear others down rather than build themselves up, we see echoes of Cain's choice. But there's hope in this dark story. God's question to Cain, am I my brother's keeper? Was answered definitively thousands of years later when another brother sacrificed himself for all humanity. Where Cain failed to love his brother, Christ succeeded in loving all his brothers and sisters. The blood of Abel cried out from the ground for justice, but the blood of Jesus cries out for mercy. This ancient murder mystery reveals timeless truths about human nature, divine justice, and the choice we all face between love and hatred, humility and pride, redemption and destruction. What happened in that field between two brothers continues to happen in human hearts every day. What secrets from the ancient world are still shaping our lives today? You'll be amazed by what we uncover next. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next exploration.